Show for today. The topic is the NAACP in 2008 challenges and opportunities. And earlier we spoke with Reverend Dr. Kimbrough dealing with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and how he became involved in the National Association. And now we have with us Reverend Andrew Wardle, a student at Tennessee State University who is also involved with the NAACP as a member of the Tennessee State University chapter of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And of course, Reverend Wharton, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you.
And of course, let me tell you not only how delighted we are to have you, but it's seldom that we have a young man or young woman dealing with some of the critical issues that we're dealing with, but we recognize that it is the young people today who will have to deal with the issues that Dr. Kimbrough pointed out as being on the forefront in terms of the NAACP. Let's look at your background and education and some of the things that eventually brought you to the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People chapter at Tennessee State University.
Well, I was born and raised here in Nashville, Tennessee. I graduated from Christian private school, Davidson Academy, and I had gone there my whole life. I had went there my whole life, 14-year senior. And later on, when I received a calling, I wasn't sure if it was a real calling or not. I would know I was chosen to give a message, and it wasn't until later that I felt that I was truly called. But Dr. Kimbrough, who we've spoken to earlier, introduced me into the NAACP. And that's how I got involved into it in the first place. And what we really do in the NAACP as far as our church, we have NAACP church services. Sometimes they go on near Youth Day. And for instance, we have certain voting times, and we try to get everybody to vote on the same day and so forth. And one of the struggles at our church is getting more people to vote, especially the youth. Now, when I turned 18, I couldn't wait to vote because I know that voting equals voice. And, you know, Dr. Kimbrough and Pastor Bowman, our pastor, Reverend Raymond Bowman, he asked if anyone was not registered to vote. And I was embarrassed at first because I raised my hand and I was the only person in the church with my hand raised. But later on, I figured I didn't care because it needs to happen sometime or another, and I want to vote as many times as possible.
And of course, being 18 and just starting to vote is the only time that you could really vote. I mean, you might not have been registered, but the very fact that you could become involved in the process. Now, what do you think, being a young person yourself, and understanding that up until this season, I think, that most young people were not that interested in the political process. What do you think that is the reason for that, and what can we do in order that we might be able to motivate our young people to understand how very, very significant the NAACP is, as well as the political process is, that they participate in the political process?
I believe that the reason they are not inspired to participate in the political process is because they don't particularly believe in the change that voting could bring. I mean, to a young person, you might say, what can one vote do? You know, I have my family voting, I have my cousins voting, I have my adoptive parents voting, you know, and I'm just a kid, I'm only 18 years old. What is voting really going to do? I believe that they do not vote because they do not see the big picture. If they would look at it, vote equals a voice, then it would change everything. Voting has to do with just about everything nowadays if you want a voice. We're having issues in school. We need funding for elementary school, high school, colleges. We have environmental problems and so forth.
And so we've got all the issues are still there, and you believe that if more young people became involved in the whole process, that it might not change that much, but certainly it would have to be a change because of the number that could be involved. Is that it?
I do. Vote equals change. I was talking to one of my workers the other day, and I asked them if who they were going to vote for in this upcoming presidential election, and they said, I don't vote. I'm not going to vote at all. And I said, why not vote? And they said, because I don't want to be blamed about which candidate that I picked for, and if they win, you know, I don't want to have the blame on me because I voted for that person.
Does that seem to be a logical kind of reason not to vote to you, though, Reverend, even though, you know, it might be young people? Does that make sense?
When I was a lot younger, I thought that might be a logical reason, but I definitely do not now, because this was a grown woman that I had talked to, and I just don't believe it's any excuse. But once again, she may not know what voting does, and I figured, you know what? She deserves to vote just like anybody else. She pays her taxes, doesn't she? Where she deserves to vote.
And whether win or lose, the vote is still very, very important.
Yes.
You know, one of the things that we find in terms of dealing with institutions of higher education is that there's a reluctance on the part of young people like yourself to become involved. Now, what can we do in order to strengthen their participation in this political process, this upcoming political season?
I believe that we need to emphasize the importance of it everywhere we go, not just in church, not just in marches, but in elementary schools, where from kindergartners on up, we have to sponsor these things everywhere, whatever it takes to get their attention in the right way.
Very good. Excuse me. Now, I think we'll have our second commercial break here very, very soon, Reverend. And what I would like to do during this final segment is to deal with an individual who has some information dealing with environmental issues, because I think that the NAACP has now gone on record as being, as understanding how very, very important these environmental issues are. But in case that does not materialize, we would want you and Dr. Kimbrough to return and to sort of give us an overview, one from an individual who has been involved in this process for a long time, and another from a younger individual who has just become involved in it. And perhaps we might be able to get sort of an interchange between the two of you that would be helpful not only to the young people who become involved in this process, but would also be helpful to all of the others, perhaps even to that young lady whom you mentioned earlier, that felt that she didn't want to be responsible for whoever they might put in, and then to somehow make her understand that she's going to be responsible whether they win or whether they lose if she votes. And of course, I think that's what we want to try to do, to simply highlight the importance of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. We again have been